Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Productions channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Album of the Week video. This is 243. And so for today's episode, I am here to celebrate the 20th anniversary for Thunderball, the 9th consecutive studio album for the German human time bombs themselves, Udo Dirkschneider's U.D.O. Originally released on March 29th, 2004 via AFM Records. And so, without further ado, let's begin. When Udo Dirkschneider regrouped with Wolf Hoffmann, Peter Boltes, and Stefan Kaufmann to reunite Accept in the early 90s, after originally leaving them to form U.D.O in 1987, things were looking positive. But after the completion of 1993's Objection Overruled, Udo's and Wolf's heads would begin to clash again. And after completing 2 more albums with Accept, 1994's Death Row and 1996's Predator, the tensions were enough for Udo, and in 1996 for a tribute album to the metal gods, Judas Priest, Udo was compelled to resurrect U.D.O, which meant another breakup for Accept. So with this new formation of U.D.O, following Udo from Accept was, well, his longtime former compadre, drummer Stefan Kaufmann, who had started working with this former Accept pal back in 1990 for the Faceless World album. But this time, he was retiring his drum set for the electric guitar. This decision made it easy for previous U.D.O drummer Stefan Schwartzman to reunite to his duties. Newcomer for U.D.O was former Bullet members Jürgen Graf, who would actually last in the band till basically right after the No Limits album, and Fitty Weinhold. And this would spark the band relationship between Dirkschneider and Weinhold, who would last for a pretty long time, marking him the longest member to be a part of U.D.O. This would kick off an era for Udo Dirkschneider that would last him an eternity. With U.D.O being active again, led to the release of 3 more classic albums that would define traditional metal in the late 1990s, starting with 1997's Solid, then 1998's No Limits, and 1999's Holy. But that was just a mere time bomb. With the turn of the 2000s rolling in, things would explode for Udo and his band U.D.O. The first album of the brand new decade was 2002's Man and Machine, which featured the song Dancing with an Angel, a duet between Udo and Doro Pesch. Man and Machine also served as the final album for Udo's label, Breaker Records, which was his way of partnering up with labels like Steamhammer/SPV and maybe a couple of others as well, which were again to use to distribute his albums because he didn't really have a legitimate sort of record deal. But by 2003, Udo wouldn't have to worry about that at all ever again, as he would sign to AFM Records, who had started in 1995. And by December 2003, Udo and his band would return to the town of Pulheim to once again record at Rox Records to record U.D.O's 9th consecutive studio album, which would be their first under AFM Records. About 14 songs, or 15 if you really count Hardcore Lover, which I don't know if it was re-recorded for this album, but it was originally recorded and was used as a bonus track to like the Japanese pressing of Solid. Either way, 14 songs were recorded, with 11 being ultimately chosen, leaving the leftover songs like Borderline, Free or Rebellion, and Run to be used for either as a special Japanese bonus track, or in the case for Free or Rebellion and Run, being used as part of a special bonus audio section for the Thundervision video that will be released really at the beginning of the month of March in 2004. Either way, by March 29th, 2004, Thunderball was officially released. So, featuring 11 tracks, clocking at the length of 45 minutes and 46 seconds, these 11 tracks are, kicking off with the title track, then into The Arbiter, then Pull the Trigger, Fistful of Anger, The Land of the Midnight Sun, Hell Bites Back, Train Ride in Russia, Pezpo Rossi, again, that's probably Russian, and again, I butchered that probably. Then, of course, The Bullet and the Bomb, The Magic Mirror, Tough Luck 2, and then ending with Blind Eyes. So there you go, folks. There's your 11 tracks for Thunderball. So with Thunderball not only being the band's debut for the AFM Records label, but this also serves as the third consecutive album for rhythm guitarist Igor Gianola, hope I pronounced that name correctly, who had debuted with the band back in 1999 for the Holy album, replacing a former rhythm guitar player, Jürgen Graf, who had came over to U.D.O alongside Fiddy Weinhold, which both of the two members originally being from the German metal band Bullet, and this also being the second consecutive album for drummer Lorenzo Milani, who had debuted with the band, well, for the previous album, Man and Machine, again replacing Stefan Schwartzman, who left pretty much around the same time as Jürgen Graf. So with all of this, this really served to be probably one of the most longest reigning band members for pretty much for quite a long time here, until maybe sometime by the late 2000s, early 2010s, somewhere around there where there'll be a turning point. Either way, this being a new lineup, but serving as also the second album for the 2000s for U.D.O. Well, how will it hold up? If there is one thing that you could always expect with Udo Dirkschneider, is that he stays true to what he and his former band Accept had created, and with Thunderball, that's clearly what you get. 11 tracks of no frills, balls to the wall, German Teutonic heavy metal, sounding more and more like Accept than the Accept these days. From blistering scorches like the brutally catchy title track, which to me has one of the best opening lines to any traditional metal song. I mean, come on. I ate the moon for breakfast. I had the sun for tea. I opened up the paper and drank the oval sea. If that ain't pure lyrical brilliance, then I obviously don't know what exactly is. But then in the same fine line of scorching burners, we have Hell Bites Back, which is also very cool. And even if it doesn't quite reach the same level of lyrical brilliance that the title track gave us, it's still very good. But the ground and pound beatdown of such songs as the rather killer The Arbiter, a somewhat slower tempo song, but its gnarly bite is enough to chomp down on any weakling, totally killer. Then of course, in its same path are both Fistful of Anger and The Bullet and the Bomb. And I'll even throw in Free or Rebellion, because that track, even though it was made as a special audio sort of bonus to the Thundervision release. And that is absolutely killer too. That is definitely a really good song, and I wish that it was actually made as part of a, for a CD bonus track instead of just being exclusive to some, as video audio. Cause that is a really good track too, so I can't neglect that one, which both share that same balls to the wall attitude. We are also treated to some no-frills catchy hard rockers, and this album has at least 2 or 4 if you combine both the Japanese and special editions, which include both Hardcore Lover and Borderline, which are very equally infectious. Pull the Trigger and Tough Luck 2. If you're wondering why it's titled Tough Luck 2, it's because the first version of Tough Luck was initially recorded for the No Limits album, but was left unfinished. The original unfinished demo version can be found as a bonus track to the 2012 Anniversary Edition reissue for No Limits. Finally, this album's metal madness isn't complete without some more melodic rockers and even one eccentric number. So for the more melodic, passionate guitar-driven tracks are both The Land of the Midnight Sun, The Magic Mirror, and the album closer, Blind Eyes. And I'll also even include Run as well. Also was made as a special sort of audio bonus to the Thundervision release. Again, that one's definitely more of a pure ballad, but again, just like what I'm going to talk about with Blind Eyes, it is very heartfelt and very sincere, and it just really is good, and I wish it wasn't just made as a special, exclusive audio track to a video. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And so you have to kind of track down that in order to actually have the complete songs that were for Thunderball, but it's a very good track. With both The Land of the Midnight Sun and The Magic Mirror, these are just more mid-tempo, melodic hard rockers that are constructed and written quite well and are placed in the right places within the track listing to give the listener enough breathing time between all the no-frills chaos. But with Blind Eyes, the album ender, this is a straight-up power ballad that is pretty damn effective. U.D.O gives out a good performance, very much in the same way as a classic like Winter Dreams. It's emotional, it's heartfelt, and does what it's supposed to do, and ends the album on a somber note. Then we have the most eccentric song on the album, that is Train Ride to Russia, a song targeted at his fan base out in Russia, so it has this Russian style to it, and I gotta say, I actually enjoy this track. It's different than most of what U.D.O has ever done, but given his relationship with the metal fans out in Russia, it isn't shocking. So of course he was going to do a song like this, and he stays true to their culture here with this track, making it a unique number within U.D.O's discography, and a very cool track at that. And that pretty much rounds out the entire album of Thunderball. Again, I just enjoyed this album from start to finish, so I think it's definitely worth it. So, just a solid run of tracks here for this album. So, while I do feel that Thunderball is a very good album, and for me, it is my personal favorite out of the 2000s catalog for U.D.O. However, at the end of the day, does it hold a candle to some of the previous, let's say, really classic albums from U.D.O., or let's say some of the more recent ones? It's a bit of a stretch, but you know what? If I have to be really honest, it kind of would be somewhere close to my top 10 favorite U.D.O. albums. But again, this is all personal opinions. It's all subjective. It's not objective. It is not the greatest album that ever be released, but it's still a very enjoyable album. And I think there's just a little bit of fire that I think that was really captured on this album. But there still has just been some great albums that come after it. And again, with such a metal icon that I pretty much put U.D.O. Dirkschneider as. No, he is definitely an icon for certain, and someone who still is leaving a legacy, with him. It's almost kind of tough to say. Still, with the girth of his discography, not just with U.D.O, but again, stretching all the way back to his stuff with Accept, it's all classic to begin with, and so it just leaves a lot up there. But either way, it still, I think, is a testament just how sort of groundbreaking U.D.O. Dirkschneider is, and it still is. He still is a very groundbreaking singer. Whether or not you agree with that or not, you still can't take away his credit as being one of the most, just having one of the most iconic voices within rock and metal. Just his very almost gargling with razor blades sort of voice, but yet just having that gnarly bite to it, and those howls of his that in many ways has been replicated but never can be recaptured. You can't really try and come nearly as close to his sort of trademark howls. And again, it's all just presented on this album and throughout his discography to begin with, but it is all worth it. So still, it's still a very good album, and it is worth celebrating for 20 years, and I think it definitely deserves some spotlight. I would personally consider this one of U.D.O.'s criminally underrated albums. I think it's just a very fun, entertaining album all throughout, and there is still some great bangers to be found on here. So, there you go. Again, for those who probably grew up with this album or who picked it up when it first, dropped back on March 29th, 2004, or probably picked it up about a year or two afterwards, still, or if you're just, following U.D.O. since, no matter what, you're a newcomer, old comer, you know what to do. That is, if you have any positive or negative to say about this album, you can leave them all in the comment section down below. But again, let's say if you're brand new to the realms of U.D.O. Dirkschneider and U.D.O. in general, and maybe even still to Accept, I would not snooze on this album, and I would not snooze on anything U.D.O. There's still some great albums to be there, and I don't have to list every single one of his classics. They're all worth checking out. So there you go. There it is, folks. There's my overall episode on Thunderball from U.D.O. This is Herbert Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later, and take care, everyone.